Okay, trying. This is not used as often for if. It's an older sign. We use the sign if. If this happens. This is more of judgment, of given two things that could happen. If that happens, what do you do? As opposed to suppose this happens. This is more out of the blue if there's of all the possibilities. This tends to be a judgment between two options. I haven't seen it used very much in the last few years. It's like two gates coming down. I'm putting and in. It's kind of frowned on. It's very English. We learned it in ASL 1, Unit 1. And it gets used much more by in English-speaking situations. Meaning completion, end of a segment, something like that. Same idea as this, but with a much more negative connotation. Oh, I thought something was going on. Ooh, something bad happened. I was wrong about some assumption. And think. Then next we have rhetorical questions. Any question can be rhetorical. But for storytelling, it's definitely a means of transition or a means of moving the story forward, kicking it forward. So what the generic, right? And then the last set of transitions are clock times, time passed, like, or age. Clock times and age, very much if you're telling a story about the sequence of events during a day or a lifetime. Time passed is how long did each section take? So if you think about it, a television show I just watched, it would say, blah, 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 1 hour before this happened. And then it would walk you through every few minutes. Every time you'd come back from a commercial, there'd be a different time. So those are just the time references that we use for transitions. Things to keep in mind as we go through this. Same type ideas as you narrate anything in any language. Start with an introduction. When did it happen? So as we're talking about transitions and telling stories, I brought back some greatest hits from the previous semesters. Remember the timber story, the gum story, both from one. The gum story is really good for looking at sequence of events and role shifting. Timber's a nice sequence of events, very simple. If you remember the tailor, all those sequences, right? Setting up something and explaining it, good things to watch. Now the next thing is taking stories from your own experiences and also taking, oh, you knock over my camera, I'm going to be very upset. All right. Come over here. Come over on the chair. If you knock over my camera, I'm going to be very mad. Come here. Yeah, come over here. All right. You hate when I pick you up. Okay. So, buddy. Sorry if the camera moves a little bit. Okay. So then, Now it's going to be telling your own stories. And this is sort of helping guide through. The lost shoe is the one we're going to be looking at. And I will include this entire sheet. It's in your book. It's in your book. And it's just a little cartoon of there's 12 different panels and a little kid. And what happened? What happened? What happened? What happened? Next, 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 next. You could also do morning, afternoon, night, if that's that for this story, that's not a big deal, but it's looking around. We're using all the rooms that we've talked about so far in describing the house. So, telling a story like this, a couple of the words that are going to come up, gone. This is more of an object missing as opposed to a person, or disappear, right? So, gone, none, none. A little bit later, none. The boy moving around from room to room, right? So we've got the classifier, the semantic classifier, because you can have it do anything you want, and he replaces the person. There's look at. I looked under the bed, boom. I looked under it. There's also search, if you remember that sign with a C, search, search for. None. Role shifting to show the parents and the kids, and acting out wherever you are. And then, now this doesn't necessarily mean disgusted as in sick, throwing up, that kind of thing. It means more like, oh. I often see this too, like, oh, I'm such an idiot. Sick is, I'm trying to think of how it gets used. It's not used very often for this. Can't believe I didn't think of that. I would shy away from this until you see other people use it, because it's a weird, like, I'm sick of myself kind of thing. It's a pretty extreme. But I would say, oh, dumb. Oh. I'm a pea brain. I didn't realize it was there. Or this is a lot lighter of great. Can't believe I spent all day looking for something. I mean, it can be gross. So things to think about as you're sort of crafting your own stories is, how do you realize, oh my God, the first part of the situation, I need something and it's gone. What do I do? Second, where you look. And it's good to make a list. 3 things is enough. You don't have to go as long as like 12 different scenarios. Pick 3 things. 3 things, 4 things, setup, 3 things, conclusion. Okay. Simple essay, if you remember from English class, right? Then how you finally found it. Was it surprise? Was it, shock? Did I... Back. So that's my ghost story. So the cave story is a slightly different. It's about someone getting lost and having an absolutely terrifying story. And she makes it seem like it's really easy, but the idea of being in that story would make me never go into a cave system, which I probably will never do unless I'm forced to for some reason. Anyway, blah, blah, blah. And then she has some. I found this where it put the captions of the English on there. If it's helpful for you to look at that, just to double check, everything she signs should be pretty easy to get. So it shouldn't be beyond your means to view the first one. But I find it sometimes it's good to go back and look. I mean, even when I'm watching something, I'll go back and look at what their text is, just to make sure that I'm not missing something or that I'm not making an assumption. So there's a couple more examples of sequences. The next few are what happens next. So you tell the story and then you come up with what happens next at the very end. A few different examples that we can go over. And then here's the vocab again. As I say, 13.9, most of 16 are all new interpretations of stuff we've already done. Just taking it a little bit further. They're pretty much hit and run. We could go for a month on each of these expanding, or we could do them in the course of a week, which is what this lecture is basically done, would be a week's worth of classes as we're going through. So that's 13.9.